Hello, this is Diana Basterfield from Ministry for Peace. I'm talking to Richard Wilkinson, who's Emeritus Professor of Social Epidemiology, and he's going to be talking to us about his latest book, Spirit Level, in relation to inequality in society. So, Richard, what are the problems relating to inequality?
Well, we've been looking at data for different rich developed countries, data on life expectancy, infant mortality, levels of violence, homicide rates, obesity, teenage births, drug problems, a whole range of problems like that. And we find that the rates of those problems in different countries is very closely related to how much income inequality there is. When I say income inequality, I simply mean the size of the gap between rich and poor. USA is one of the most unequal countries and has more of all these social problems and worse health. Whereas the Nordic countries and Japan are at the more equal end. Britain does pretty badly on those scales. But it looks as if almost all the problems all the ones that we associate with more deprived areas of our society are more common in more unequal societies.
Is it just the poor who are affected by inequality?
No, it looks as if the poor are most affected. The differences between more and less equal countries on any of these problems are biggest amongst the poor, but it looks as if even the better off, even the middle classes, benefit from greater equality. So even given a person's income and education and social class and so on, they would still do better with that same income and education and so on if they were in more equal country. And when I say better, I mean they'd be likely to live longer, they'd be less likely to suffer violence, that children would do better at school, they'd be less likely to get involved in drugs, be less likely to become teenage parents. So all these things seem to go together.
It's remarkable, isn't it? Why that should have that effect?
It's an extraordinary picture. Though it coincides with an intuition I think people have always had. I think lots of people, for hundreds of years, have thought of inequality as socially divisive and corrosive. And in a way, that's all the data shows. But the effects are just much bigger than we thought. So instead of finding that, maybe there are 30% more teenage births or 30% more homicide in more unequal countries, we find it's 4, 5, 6, 7 times as much. Huge differences.
So how does inequality do this?
It looks as if one of the most important parts in the sort of causal link are that inequality damages the quality of social relations in a society. By which I mean measures of social capital, involvement in community life deteriorate, people trust each other less in more unequal societies, and as I said, rates of violence are much higher. And so you can see the effect of inequality weakening the social fabric, and that I think at the same time social relationships become more stressful. There's more status competition, more status insecurity, and we're judging each other more by where we think we are in the social hierarchy.
What we've got, yes.
Instead of accepting each other as sort of fellow human beings.
And how does this link in with climate change and carbon emissions?
Well, I think there are some important links. I mean, in a way, I suppose the biggest threat to reducing carbon emissions is consumerism. And that is very powerfully driven by the level of inequality. I said just now that status competition increases in more unequal societies because there is more at stake. The status differences are bigger. And of course people use their money to show social status, and that's what's driving consumerism. But there is also another important link with achieving sustainability. And that is because more unequal countries, people are more out for themselves. As the quality of social relations, the involvement in community life deteriorates, so public spiritedness deteriorates. And of course, doing something about the environment and reducing carbon emissions means, above everything else, is that we have to have the greater good at the forefront. And you can see that more equal countries do better on that score in all sorts of ways. For instance, more equal countries do better on the Global Peace Index. They do better on the amount of money they give in foreign aid to developing countries. They do better in the proportion of waste materials that they recycle. All those things that show a wider concern with the greater good seem to be more advanced in more equal countries.
So, could one conclude that reducing income differences would improve the quality of life for everyone?
Yes, I think that is very strongly the message. Looking at the data, the impression you get is that inequality makes societies socially dysfunctional for everyone. And in a way now, how we improve the quality of life for everyone is by improving the quality of social relations. And you can do that by reducing the scale of income differences.
Yes. And how does one do that?
Well, I think it is very exciting that instead of thinking of the sort of psychosocial well-being of a whole society as being something that, there's no way governments can intervene or do anything about it, we all need to go and see shrinks and all this kind of stuff. It does look now as if there are policy handles on the psychosocial well-being of whole societies. Reduce income differences and social relations improve, life is less stressful, and a whole range of these social problems will decline quite dramatically.
That's a very optimistic ending. Thank you very much.